Martinsyde G.100 and G.102 Elephant, supplemental. I'm adding this supplement because I have some photographs that I didn't have before, and I'm going to be reading directly out of the aeroplane database. For example, here's a bomb rack of an elephant modified to carry a dozen 20-pound bombs, rather than the usual 8. And here's a photo of the Eamon triple gun mounting that I just couldn't find when I was doing the last video. The idea came from Captain Leon Eamon of Oxfordness Experimental Station. The problem with it was that it was impossible for the pilot to change ammunition drums in flight. Elephant 7498 of number 27 Squadron was forced down on 24th of September 1916. Second Lieutenant Ernest Wingfield became a POW and his aircraft was put into German markings. A3978 of B Flight, number 27 Squadron, was shot down on the 9th of August 1917. Second Lieutenant Walter Reginald Kingswell Skinner being taken prisoner. Bombs still hang from the underwing racks. And I'm going to read this one directly out of the article. Captain Leslie Sutherland served with number 67 Squadron, Australian, RFC at Mejdel, Palestine. He later recalled a strange machine adapted from one of the unit's elephants. At that time, despite bombing and machine gun attacks by the Martinsydes, enemy food shipments across the northern Dead Sea using fast motorboats were still getting through to Turkish forces. Major Richard Williams, the squadron's commanding officer, had a worn-out elephant stripped of its flight surfaces and undercarriage. Floats were added to create a form of hydroplane. So, in Sutherland's words, give its pilot gunner an open commission on the Dead Sea. The resultant surface craft was christened Mimi. Terribly overpowered, top-heavy, and prone to capsizing, the floats were rather narrow track. Mimi could nonetheless overtake the enemy's vessels with ease. Evidently, the machine was a success. Faster, better-armed craft were brought in by the enemy. Finally, Sutherland wrote, when Mimi was proving too good even for the reinforcements, Allenby settled the whole Turkish grain problem. He captured Jerusalem. Mimi was stood down, her fate finally being unknown. The Martinsyde RG. The Martinsyde RG was a late 1916 design for a single-seat fighter powered by the 190-horsepower Rolls-Royce Falcon 1 engine. It was a single-bay biplane, obviously derived from the Martinsyde Elephant via the experimental single-bay variant of the earlier design. In the RG, advantage was taken of the greater power offered by the Falcon, and the aircraft was not merely a Falcon-powered version of the single-bay Elephant. In its structure, the RG resembled the Elephant closely, and bore the design characteristics of A. Fletcher. The rear fuselage and tail unit were strongly reminiscent of the Elephant, but on the RG, the incidence of the tailplane could be altered in flight, whereas on the earlier type, the tailplane had been fixed. A rectangular frontal radiator was provided for the engine, which drove a two-blade air screw. The cockpit was under the center section. Consequently, the pilot's view was restricted. The mainplanes were of equal span. Ailerons were fitted to the upper and lower surfaces. The armament consisted of one fixed Vickers gun mounted on the port upper longeron, outside of the center section struts, and a Lewis gun on the starboard side of the cockpit. The Martinsyde RG underwent official trials in February 1917. When it recorded performance figures that were better than those of the SE-5. The poor position of its pilot was criticized in the official test report, which suggested that the view could be improved by raising the seat and covering the center section and lower wing roots with transparent material. The Martinsyde Company chose to revise the design more thoroughly, however. In its modified form, the RG had its cockpit behind the rear center section struts and in line with the trailing edge of the lower wing. The cutout in the trailing portion of the center section was considerably enlarged to increase the pilot's field of view, and the stub wings to which the lower main planes were attached were eliminated, thus reducing the lower span by about 2 feet. The badly disposed armament of the original form of the RG was replaced by 2 Vickers machine guns mounted externally immediately in front of the cockpit. The rear top decking was heightened to provide a headrest for the pilot. A 4-blade air screw replaced the original, and it is probable that the 275 horsepower Rolls-Royce Falcon 3 had replaced the Falcon 1, for it is known that with the RG a Falcon 3 was flying in June 1917. These modifications enhanced the aircraft's appearance considerably. With the Falcon 3 engine, the performance at altitude was greatly improved, and there can be little doubt that the RG would have been a considerable weapon if it had gone into production. The official report praised it highly. The performance of this machine is far and away better than any other machine yet manufactured. The machine maneuvers extremely well, and could almost hold her own in this respect against even a rotary-engined Scout. There is no doubt that as a fighter she would be invaluable. Vision a little worse than the SE-5, but far better than the previous 190 horsepower Martinsyde. It is understood that in a future model the pilot seat will be raised so that he can see easily over the top plane. Doubtless the imminence of the Martinsyde F3, foreshadowed in that final paragraph, was the main reason why the revised RG did not go into production. George Handyside was looking even farther ahead.